Hello and welcome to Improve Your Voice, aka vocabilities.com. My name is Darren McStay, as you should know by now, and today I'm going to be looking at the CEO of Facebook's voice and giving him a quick review. This is Mark Zuckerberg.
This is an ongoing arms race.
Or Zuckerberg, I'm not too sure how to pronounce that because everyone says it differently. Of course, we've all got different accents. But what's important is we look at his accent and what does he do? What is it that makes Mark Zuckerberg sound the way he does? Let's have a listen.
This is an ongoing arms race. As long as there are people sitting in Russia whose job it is to try to interfere with elections around the world, this is going to be an ongoing conflict. What I can commit is that we're going to invest significantly because this is a top priority to make sure that people aren't spreading misinformation or trying to interfere in elections on Facebook.
Well, the first thing that really jumps out to me about Mark is that he's got this air placement. Of course, usually, quite often in the States and Canada, there's a lot of nasality where sound is sort of placed and the airflow goes up into the nasal cavity, but also out of the mouth. But it kind of sits around, kind of here somewhere at the back, and it doesn't throw forward. Now he's got a bit more of a throaty version of that, and not quite as extreme as Jordan Peterson, but it's getting along the lines of Kermit the Frog somewhat. So let's take another listen to this.
Whose job it is.
Job it is. Job it is. Job.
Job it is.
Can you hear that? If I don't throw the sound forward, as I do with my accent, and I hold it back here, and I try to add the American accent in, I'm getting somewhere close to where he might sound.
Is to try to interfere with elections around the world.
Interfere. If you were to make like a one-tone sound from different air placements, his would be because it's stuck back here, it's stuck in his throat, and I think he's slightly putting his larynx down. He's clearly got a big Adam's apple, and he's got a long neck and a long face too. And so partly maybe his physicality and the fact that he might be uncomfortable wearing a suit is making him kind of adjust and pull his head back and up. And so it's kind of pulling away. See, my tonality would be because it hits off the hard palate and straight out. That's just my accent, the placement I use. But his is so it makes him sound a little bit unreal, and it's a bit weird. It's almost like he's pulling back with his words, even though he's like incredibly articulate.
What I can commit is that we're going to invest significantly because this is a top priority to make sure that people aren't spreading misinformation or trying to interfere in elections on Facebook.
It sounds almost like he's about to cry every time he speaks. To me, somehow it's like, you know, when people kind of get a bit choked up and they just they're just about to cry. That kind of moment before that sound just escapes and leaves. It sounds like he's talking at that zone all the time. Maybe he is. Maybe he's deeply upset, and that's why he speaks like that. I'm not sure.
Whose job it is to try to interfere with elections around the world.
Elections around the world. So yeah, he's really here. So that placement thing is quite important because it has a massive effect on the tonality of the sounds we make. I've been working with a client recently. I'm not sure if you're watching this, Eric, but hi. And he's looking to change his accent from the Cantonese language into something closer resembling the RP accent, and we're looking at Tom Hiddleston. And with that, we discovered that Eric's own accent is more nasally. It's somewhere up there, comes through the nose, and then what we want to do is to have the placement come towards the front of the mouth, more just at the gum ridge behind the top teeth there. And so there's a very different sound happens, and so accents are hugely affected by the airflow and the placement of the air, and where you use your imagination to direct air and energy in your mouth and nose.
This is going to be an ongoing conflict.
Yeah, he's got a very small mouth, and he kind of purses his lips a bit. He does a lot of work with the front of his mouth, and he's not really using everything so well, but he keeps this tidy area at the front very articulate and very bright, and he's clearly an intelligent man, and he's able to vocalize his thoughts, you know, at a rapid rate, but he's not really, he doesn't have to use much volume. Maybe he's never needed to do that. He's never had to throw his voice or to project. He's always maybe used a microphone or been in smaller groups, and on stage, again, he's probably used a microphone. So for him, he's developed the front of the mouth articulation, and he's very good at using his lips and his tongue to create sounds. What I mean by that, he's not over articulating, he's just articulating just right. He's what I'd call, in a way, broadcaster English, because he's not making it too clipped and too pronounced, but he's talking in a relaxed manner, but you hear every single word quite clearly. And that's very important, especially as someone who's the CAO of one of the biggest companies in the world. In order to articulate himself with his colleagues, his staff, he might not have got where he was if he didn't have that ability to have clear diction and speech. I've not really got a huge amount to say about him. I just wanted to pick it up because he's very different. He's not an actor, he's not trained, but he can articulate himself very well and clearly, and he's a good example of someone who's not necessarily an amazing voice, but who's using it effectively in his medium, and it does the job. It does it quite well, and he's able to get his thoughts out because he doesn't restrict himself. But it's very interesting just that his whole instrument and the way he holds it, and his tonality. And so this tonality can be changed just by changing the airflow and air placement. So maybe something you could play around with. Maybe you can play around, try and discover what your own tone is. What does your accent do? What does it create? What kind of sound? Does it evoke emotions in other people? Do people often ask you to speak up, or maybe you're swallowing your sound? Because different parts of the world and different accents will have a different kind of generalized tone. And this is really because of the air placement and the airflow. So just maybe play around with NG sounds, like the end of the something, and then come down into a hum, a forward hum. Then come back into your throat. So let's try and play around with those. Maybe that's something you could do this week, is just get it into your mouth, feel it, feel the different placements, and just try and send the air in different areas and play around. Try and speak in your own accent, but see if you can maintain that accent by changing it, and see what happens if your accent does change, if you just change the air placement. Something for you to play with. So he's opened up a good little few exercises we can practice for ourselves now. Take that away, have fun. That has been Mark Zuckerberg. I am Darren McStay from vocabilities.com, aka Improve Your Voice, and until the next time,
look after your voice.